Recording. ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाखया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्. We're doing the second chapter, and in the first chapter, the explanation was all about how we are not this body and we are the soul. And being the soul now, what is our natural existence, and whether we belong to the material world or the spiritual world. Because we're the spirit soul, we belong to the spiritual world. And now this question is how to transfer oneself from the material world to the spiritual world. And to answer that is the second chapter. And throughout the second chapter, we have been seeing how the different kinds of yogis, they transfer themselves out of this material world and what destinations they reach. So the Gyan Yogi, sometimes, because he reads and gains knowledge from Vedas about various different places of the material world and the spiritual world, different planets of the spiritual world, and different uh, planetary systems of the material world, he has this tendency sometimes to even choose the planets within the material world also. He gets attracted to the material world, the higher planets of the material world where there is more enjoyment. So that is one uh, caution or one danger that is there because of reading too many books on one's own about what is a um, creation and where are different planets and what are the different facilities of enjoyment available in different planets. Independently, if someone studies these without any guidance, there is this danger of deviation and choosing planets in the material world only. Now, the other way of getting out of the material world to the spiritual planets, uh, one who at the time of death, Prabhupada says in the previous explanations, they actually uh, meditate on the sound Om. Not on any personal form of the Lord, but just on the sound Om. And they leave the body. When they leave the body, the soul leaves from the top of the head. Those kind of meditators or dhyan yogis, they go to the Brahma Jyoti. Brahma Jyoti is a uh, effulgence of the Lord. It is the light of the Lord. Like how the sun has got sunshine, the Lord has got Brahma Jyoti. These yogis, when they reach there, now just see this place where it is highlighted. This is what is meant by merging into the spiritual existence. It should not be considered that one merges into the Brahma Jyoti in the sense of becoming one with it. The individuality of the spiritual spark is still retained. That means he goes to this Brahma Jyoti, and one may think that like how one merging into the Brahma Jyoti means losing one's own identity. That doesn't happen still because the spirit spark is always an individual. He will remain an individual. He has his own personality, individuality wherever he goes. Even if he thinks that I'm going to merge in the Brahma Jyoti, I'll lose my existence. It doesn't happen. And I gave example of, how the uh, the concept they think is that a drop of water will be merged into the ocean. It will lose its own identity. It will just become one with the ocean. But that doesn't happen like that. What happens? It is like a not a drop of water, but like a fish. The fish, it whenever it enters any water body, it is that it is entered that different water body, but it doesn't lose its identity. Still, its own identity is maintained. It doesn't become merged into that water and lose its own identity. So this is what is the meaning of this line that one merges into the Brahma Jyoti in the sense of becoming one with it, the individuality of the spirit spark is still retained. Now, we discussed about the other one, other yogi, no? This is the impersonalist Dhyan yogi. There is one more Dhyan yogi who is a personalist Dhyan yogi. That is, he remembers the form of the Lord while leaving the body. And he also leaves from the top of his head, the soul leaves. But in his remembrance, he remembers the form of the Lord and what sound he meditates on the name of the Lord's. Right? They like how this impersonalist yogi, he meditates on Om, the sound Om, and he enters into the Brahma Jyoti. The personalist Dhyan yogi, he remembers the form of the Lord. Which form? The form that is there in his heart, that is Paramatma form. It's four-handed form of the Lord. He remembers that form, he enters into the spiritual planets. Any of the Vaikuntha planets he enters, that he meditates on the particular form of the Lord, which is 400 forms are there in Vaikuntha planets. So he enters the Vaikuntha planets. Now, coming back to the impersonalist, that he has now gone into the spiritual existence. Very nice. He rented Brahma Jyoti, very nice. But he thought he will lose his identity, he'll become one with the God. Maybe he thought that he will become God, but it doesn't happen. He is still an individual. Then what is the problem if he's an individual? The problem is when he entered into this place, the Brahma Jyoti is eternal and it is full of knowledge, maybe, but it is still not, he is still not attained the Ananda. When there is nothing, no one, it is just light, where is the question of Ananda? Then maybe some kind of Brahmananda, which is peace. Shanti, Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Shanti. That is still not bliss. That is still not happiness that the soul has been hankering for all this while, even while in the material world. You see, everyone is hankering after happiness and they want some kind of solace, peace sometimes. And some people want more than just peace. They just want to be excited all the time, happy all the time. They don't want any miseries. We see that here also. Because the soul's nature is to be happy. The same nature is still there with the uh, yogi, the impersonalist who has entered the Brahma Jyoti. And he is maybe having little peace there, Brahmananda, that kind of happiness is there. But soul hankers for more. After some time, when everything is peaceful in our lives, what happens? We want more happiness, right? When there is misery, of course, we want peace. But when we attain peace, we want happiness, more happiness. And this need for happiness is ever increasing of the soul, which can be only possible in, in the spiritual world, in a relationship with the Lord, in a service, devotional service with the personality of the Lord, in exchanging that service, in exchanging those rasas, that is when this ever increasing happiness is possible. Whatever ananda the soul experiences in the direct exchanges with the Lord, that is what is the soul meant for. It's taken birth for that only. It is created for that only, for to be happy in the loving relationship with the Lord, in the form of different kinds of services and different kinds of relations. There are many that we already had a little discussion about in previous classes. Uh, so now the problem with the Brahma Jyoti impersonalist who has entered the Brahma Jyoti is that he has attained Brahmananda, but he wants more. Let us see the same thing. Prabhupada is also explaining in the next paragraph. Who will read the next paragraph? Starting from however.
I will read, Master.
Yes, Nandi.
However, as living entities, we want enjoyment. Being in itself is not enough. We want bliss, ananda, as well as being sat. In this entirety,
Hmm.
the living entity is composed of three qualities: eternality, knowledge, and bliss. Those who enter impersonally into the Brahma Jyoti
Remain there.
can remain there for some time in full knowledge that they are now merged homogeneously with Brahman. But they cannot have that eternal ananda, bliss, because that part is wanting. One may remain alone in a room for some time and enjoy himself by reading a book or engaging in some thought, but it is not possible to remain in that room for years and years at a time, and certainly not for all eternity. Therefore, for one who merges impersonally into the existence of the Supreme, there is every chance of falling down again into the material world in order to acquire some association. This is the Vedic of Srimad Bhagavatam. Astronauts may travel thousands and thousands of miles, but if they do not find rest on some planet, they have to return again to Earth. In any case, rest is required. In the impersonal form, rest is uncertain. Therefore, Srimad Bhagavatam says that even after so much endeavor, if the impersonalist enters into the spiritual world and acquires an impersonal form, he returns again into the material world because of neglecting to serve the Supreme Lord in love and devotion. As long as we are here on earth, we must learn to practice to love and serve Krishna, the Supreme Lord. If we learn this, we can enter into those spiritual planets. The impersonalist's position in the spiritual world is non permanent. For out of loneliness, he will attempt to acquire some association. Because he does not associate personally with the Supreme Lord, he has to return again to the world and associate with conditioned living entities there.
Thank you,
Can I stop,
Madam.
ma'am?
Yeah.
Okay.
So thank you so much for this reading. And the important point is this Brahma Jyoti, the impersonalist yogi, has entered. And what happens? He's like one alone person in a room. How many years he can stay like that? Maybe initially for 1 hour, 2 hours, we have a nice our own space and we can read, we can do whatever we want. But how long can anyone remain like that? It is like a uh, another jail only. The material world is one kind of jail. And moving to Brahma Jyoti, he realizes that I have come from one jail to another where there is no happiness. I'm just alone. Then what happens? He thinks, oh, let me at least have some association with someone. But he cannot go to spiritual world planets, no? Spiritual planets he cannot go. He has not done that kind of sadhana. He has only done sadhana till he can come to Brahmajyoti. So what can happen next? Prabhupada says, like how astronauts, they travel thousands of miles to different planets. But if they don't rest on some planet, they have to again return back to Earth. Similarly, this yogi also, the impersonalist, after even attaining Brahmajyoti, he has to again come back to the material world because he cannot stay alone for so long. He has to return to the material world for two things. One, that if he has realized that what he has done is incomplete, he has to go back to spiritual world rather than settling in between the spiritual world and the material world. In some place he's got some permission to stay here, but he thinks I want to go to spiritual world. I have to complete my sadhana. So for that he has to come back to material world and seek association of devotees who practice and teaches him how to go back to the spiritual planets. Or if he just gets frustrated with that place and he thinks, let me enjoy at least material happiness. If that kind of thought is there, then he will come back to material world into the association of again karmis here. And that is like even further fall down. So at least the impersonalist, with all his knowledge, he should be able to take a desire. He should desire that let me complete the process rather than in stucking in between the material world and spiritual in this light, in this Brahma Jyoti. I have to now complete my process, and in next chance, I should be able to go back to spiritual planets. So for that, let me go to material world and take association of uh, devotees or advanced acharyas who can teach me how can I go back to spiritual planet and never return back to this material world again. So only the person who goes back to spiritual planets, only they never return back to material world. Anyone who just reaches up to Brahma Jyoti, they have this tendency or the danger to come back to the material world. Like how the astronauts, after traveling so many miles, have to again come back to Earth. Okay. So before going to the next paragraph, uh, why why does the impersonalist he will attempt to acquire some association? This question, this is one of the lines in this paragraph only. Why he attempts to acquire some association? So the answer is here. He attempts to acquire association out of loneliness. The impersonalist position in the spiritual world is non-permanent, or out of loneliness, he will attempt to acquire some association. So the jiva, the soul, it cannot remain alone forever. We do see that here yogis and big tapasvis, they go to Himalayas and they practice for many years being alone, tapasya. But it cannot happen forever. Even if they go back to Brahma Jyoti, that kind of stage also if they acquire, still after some years, some time, they will feel lonely. The solution is only one: associate personally with the Lord and serve Him and gain happiness in return. So, this loneliness is why? Because he does not associate personally with the Supreme Lord. He has to return again to the world and associate with conditioned living entities there. That is a very unfortunate thing. After even attaining Brahmajyoti, he has to come back and associate with normal jivas here. But if he realizes that, okay, I have only gone this far, I should next time finish my business completely and I should associate with such people who will teach me. How will I not again have this loneliness, rather have personal association with the Lord? That is at least one level of success if he comes back to the material world with such kind of lesson learned. Okay. Next, next paragraph, who will read? It is of utmost importance, therefore, that we know the nature of our constitutional position. We want eternity, complete knowledge, and also pleasure. When we are left alone for a long time in the impersonal Brahma Jyoti, we cannot have pleasure, and therefore we accept the pleasure given by the material world. But in Krishna consciousness, real pleasure is enjoyed. In the material world, it is generally accepted that the highest pleasure is sex. This is a perverted reflection of the sex pleasure in the spiritual world, the pleasure of association with Krishna. But we should not think that the pleasure there is like the sex pleasure in the material world. No, it is different. But unless sex life is there in the spiritual world, it cannot be reflected here. Here it is simply a perverted reflection. But the actual life is there in Krishna, who is full of all pleasure. Therefore, the best process is to train ourselves now, so that at the time of death, we may transfer ourselves to the spiritual universe, to Krishna Loka, and there associate with Krishna. In Brahma Samhita, Sri Krishna and his abode are described. चिन्तामणि प्रकरसद्मसुकल्पवृक्षा लक्षावृतेषु सुरभिरभिपालयन्तम् लक्ष्मीसहस्रशतसम्भ्रमसेव्यमानम् गोविन्दम् आदिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि. I worship Govinda, the primeval lord, the first progenitor, who is tending the cows, fulfilling all desires, in abodes built with spiritual gems, surrounded by millions of wish fulfilling trees, always served with great reverence and affection by hundreds and thousands of Lakshmis or Gopis. So, in this paragraph, Prabhupada is giving what is the spiritual world and who saw the spiritual world, the Krishna Loka, especially in the spiritual world, Brahma saw. This is before the creation. Brahma was given this vision before Brahma is asked to do the secondary creation of the material world. What is primary creation? What is secondary creation? I will explain in a little while. So that time Brahma wished to see what spiritual worlds look like. He wants to have a vision. It was given, and he sees that there is Krishna Loka, and he is now praying. Wow, what I'm seeing, like that he was telling, and that is what is Brahma Samhita. And Brahma Samhita has got many verses like this where he is describing what he's seeing in the spiritual world. And he, in this particular verse, he is describing that the spiritual world, this has got many, many cows, which are Surabhi. And there are many, many wish fulfilling trees, Kalpa Vrikshas. That means you ask a tree what you want, the tree will give. It is not that, mango tree will give only mangoes, right? But wish fulfilling trees, whatever you ask, they will give. And also it is built of not some stones and or some dust particles, but it is built of spiritual gems. That is what is uh, the mud looks like there. It is not this mud. It is all gems only there. And what is happening there? The Govinda, the Lord, he is Adi Purush. That is, he is a first primeval Lord. He is a first progenitor. That is, he is the father of everyone. And he is served by affection by thousands and thousands of Lakshmis or Gopis. There are so many who are serving him there. That is what he saw. Brahma saw this and he's describing. So now Prabhupada is telling us what is spiritual universe. Here is what you get the real pleasure. The material world, they are thinking only sex is a real pleasure. That is the greatest pleasure. But in spiritual world, the pleasure what we get here is very, very perverted reflection compared to what we get in spiritual world. Perverted reflection means what? Reflection is not true, right? It's just a reflection. Like how a tree is standing on the banks of a river, what happens? A reflection, how it looks. In the reflection, the tree is standing on the banks, but in the reflection, first the roots will be there, and then the tree will be there downwards, right? It appears as if the tree is downwards in the reflection. That is ulta. So that is perverted reflection means uh, there is not no reality. It is ulta. First of all, it is not real. The reflection is not real, and also that is ulta, upside down. So this is what is here. Everyone thinking that having a so-called partner to have sex with is greatest pleasure, but ultimately that is what is everyone hankering, right? They want to earn money to get a nice husband or a wife, so that they can have this pleasure, and then they give birth to children. Then they also grow up and they want to have a good place and good enjoyment with someone with whom they can have this pleasure. So this pleasure is what everyone is hankering after, but it is like a perverted reflection of the real pleasure in the material, in the spiritual world. In the spiritual world also there is a lot of happiness, but that is not like this. That pleasure is undescribable in words of this material world. And there everyone is enjoying bliss all the time in the service of the Lord, in union with the Lord. In that is what is yoga, right? Yoga means union with the Lord. Uh, Yoga means also we understood plus. It is adding Lord to one's life. That is what is spiritual world. It is always the Lord in whatever activity they do. Their consciousness is in the Lord. Whatever they think of, it is about the Lord. Their pleasure also, they think of the pleasure of the Lord, and then they derive pleasure instead in return. So that is what is spiritual world and spiritual happiness. But unfortunately, we think that that kind of pleasure is in spiritual world also. Krishna is enjoying with gopis means maybe he's having enjoyment like how here a boy and a girl have. It is not like that. It's completely different. But there is great pleasure in spiritual world. But for the yogi, the impersonalist who has entered the Brahma Jyoti, if he is unable to get to the spiritual world, he sometimes may think that let me go to material world. At least there is some kind of pleasure there. That is one disadvantage of having Brahma Jyoti as one's goal that we have already discussed. So in this paragraph, Prabhupada is telling, okay, he has reached Brahma Jyoti, but what about the spiritual planets, how they look? And we should have information about that so that he will not settle down back to, again, coming back to material world and at least enjoy sex life here. No, he should think that he should have this information that spiritual world has got higher enjoyment. That is why this what Brahma saw in his vision about the spiritual world is given. There is a world, spiritual world, and one should have a goal of attaining that rather than settling down for material world or even to Brahma Jyoti. One has to go beyond. Okay, so from this from this paragraph, we know the nature of our constitutional position. What is the nature of our constitutional position? Any answer?
It is eternity, knowledge, and
Also pleasure. Yeah. Eternity is Sat, complete knowledge is Chit, and pleasure is Ananda. Sat, Chit, Ananda. This is what is our constitutional position. This is what we constitute of. We don't constitute of this so-called skin, muscles, bones. This is not what. There is only constituents of the body. The body constitutes of all this. But the soul, that what we are is the soul, constitute of eternity, knowledge, and bliss. Sat, Chit, Anand. Okay. Next paragraph, we will read. This is a description of Krishna Loka. Who will read?
I will read ma. The houses are made of what is called touchstone. Whatever touchstone touches immediately turns into gold. The trees are wish fulfilling trees or desired trees, for one can receive from them whatever he wishes. In this world, we get mangoes from mango trees and apples from apple trees, but there from any tree one can get whatever he desires. Similarly, the cows are called surabhi and they yield an endless supply of milk. These are descriptions of the spiritual planets found in Vedic scriptures. In
Yeah.
this material world, can I stop,
Yes,
Mataji?
yes, Manoj, just one second. So these are the descriptions found in Vedic scriptures like Brahma Samhita, like how we have read just now. It is not some fairy tale story or some times they say, it is some mythology. No, this is real. This is actual reality. What we are thinking reality is actually false. It is temporary material world. It will just go like this material world. It is temporary creation. It gets destroyed after some time. And the cosmology that is described in the Vedas, it very clearly describes how this material world is created, for how long it is created, what is the age of Brahma, And after 100 years of Brahma, age completes, this material world is again destroyed. And everything again goes back into the Suptavastha. And after 100 years of such Suptavastha, again create the secondary creation starts. Again, the material world comes into picture, and different jivas are given different bodies who could not go back to spiritual world in that particular creation, in that time of creation. So previously they couldn't go back. So again, they're given another chance in next creation, next cycle of creation. So this is a cycles of destruction and creation that keeps happening here in material world. That doesn't happen in spiritual world. That is eternal. There is no destruction there. It is eternal. And here, uh, whatever we see, we think this is reality, but this is temporary. Something which is very temporary, sometimes called as false also. Right? If someone tells you that you become president for one day, does it does it even feel real? Okay, for one day only. I am not a real president, just for one day. That is almost false only. That is how this material world is. Because it is so temporary, it is false. That is what they say that try to actually know the reality, no? That is what is self-realization and all. So that is given where in Vedic scriptures about the spiritual planets, these descriptions, and this description sometimes like how they told that it is the houses are made of touchstone. Touchstone means what? It is not gold or some jewel. It is what? A stone, if anything is touched to it, that becomes gold. That kind of stones are there in spiritual world. All this is not imagination or some fairy tale. It is given in the Vedic scriptures. So this information, if it is lacking, then we think whatever these houses, these stones and this brick, this is only is reality. This is what I have to enjoy. I have to make two more houses. But once you know from the Vedic scriptures what we are losing on by while just wasting our time here in acquiring more and more of all this waste. Whatever is required, that much we shouldn't have. But what is required for actually the requirement is that we prepare going back to Krishna Loka. And there we will have our own, these kind of houses Krishna will give. There is no dearth of anything with Krishna. Even here also we see that how devotees are given every facility, enough, whatever is required for their spiritual advancement, Krishna gives that. If he sees that they can handle more Aishwarya, no problem, still they will practice Krishna consciousness, he will give more. But if Krishna sees that if you give more wealth, they may deviate, they may start enjoying senses rather than having focus on me, Krishna will give less. According to everyone's needs, Krishna will give. And what Krishna can give, ultimately, he can give houses of touchstones, he can give wish fulfilling trees, he can give surabhis, cows which can yield endless supply of milk. Here, one drop of milk is also not pure milk these days, right? We cannot get. So, this is what Krishna is offering. And don't settle down for anything less than that. That is what is Prabhupada's request. Not don't settle down in material world, in higher planets of material world like Svargaloka, etc. Or even don't settle down for Brahma Jyoti. You have more to aim. Keep the highest goal. Be the most ambitious person in the whole world. That is, aim for the highest Krishna Loka. Okay, next paragraph now. Continue, Mataji.
In this material world, we have become accumulate, acclimatized to birth, death, and all sorts of suffering. Material scientists have discovered many facilities for sense enjoyment and destruction, but they have discovered no solution to the problems of old age, disease, and death. They cannot make any machine that will check death, old age, or disease. We can manufacture something that will accelerate death, but nothing that will stop death. Those who are intelligent, however, are not concerned with the fourfold miseries of material life, but with elevation of the spiritual planets. One who is continuously in trance Nityayukta Yogina does not divert his attention to anything else. He is always situated in trance. His mind is always filled with the thought of Krishna without deviation. Ananya Chincheta Satatam. Satatam refers to anywhere and anytime.
Thank you, Mataji. So, we will stop here. I will explain this paragraph by Krishna's mercy tomorrow, and we'll continue because we've already reached 40 minutes here. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripasintu bhyeva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.